In most of Half-Life, you're left alone to fend off against aliens and soldiers, but sometimes there comes an ally that may not be well equipped but still has the heart and courage to have your back. Let's take a look at the evolution of the Black Mesa Security Guard. Our story starts off in the concept art stage. You see, most people think that the security guard was first shown off in those press releases, but actually, the security guard's first iteration was in this Chuck Jones concept art piece for the Panther Eye. Now, if you look at the person on the ground, his face looks elderly, plus he's wearing thick-framed glasses, making you think he's a scientist. But if you look closely, that's a security guard helmet right next to his left forearm. Almost the same helmet that the retail Barney uses. He's also reaching out to a weapon that roughly looks like an M4, a weapon that was originally meant for the HECU soldiers before the MP5 came in. Next up is the pre-.52 alpha version. This was the earliest in-game rendition of the security guard, first shown in the PC Gamer article from July 1997. This predated the .52 alpha build by 2 months. Although he looks very similar to the security guard in the alpha build, it might be deduced from the screenshots that he had rigging issues in his model and was kind of unfinished at this point in time. Then we have the actual 0.52 version. This one is the one you can see in the alpha build that was uploaded to the internet a while ago. Checking the files in the build, the model was named Barney.mdl, and this was the first instance he was referred to as Barney. The origins of his name goes back to the character Barney Fife from the Andy Griffith Show. This character was played by Don Knotts. Don Knotts' face was used as a likeness for the face expression this Barney has. This version of Barney had very slightly different textures than the previous one, plus he also had different animations as well. There's an interesting story about how Barney came to be a companion during this time in development. You see, Barney at this time was not an ally, but rather a low-tier enemy that you'd have to fight. Steve Bond, a developer at Valve, was testing out enemy squad behavior, and he linked a squad of Barneys to Gordon as a leader, and that resulted in them not attacking Gordon but rather following him around the map. This unexpectedly led to Barney becoming the first ally that could help Gordon fight off his enemies in the Black Mesa research facility. Next up is this strange version which showed up in the preliminary findings disc. While most of his body looks similar to the previous version, his face was drastically changed and his helmet now had a blue stripe across it. Interestingly, this model was reskinned into the construction worker NPC that got cut later. Now we move on to everybody's favorite Ted Barney models. So, the name Ted Barney comes from Ted Bachman, an employee who used to work at Valve. His likeness was used for this version of the security guard. The interesting thing is that this model showed up in the Half-Life Entity Guide, which was released on October 29, 1998, a month before Half-Life came out. Of course, by the time the game actually came out, this model was replaced, but there were still images that we could look at for the earlier versions of the Barney model. Of course, Ted Barney had various versions of himself as well. The first one had beady black eyes, then there was a version that had minor changes to the textures, had whites in his eyes, plus a bit of different geometry in his upper legs. Then came the final Ted Barney. He had more details in his security guard vest, darker jean pockets, and taller shoes. And you know, since this model uses Ted Bachman's likeness and Male02 from Half-Life 2 also uses Ted's likeness, maybe these two were the same people? Then comes the no-beard Ted model that you can see on the poster in Black Mesa. Only difference here is that he doesn't have the facial hair from the previous models. Now, there's one more version before we got to the final one, and I was surprised to see that I never knew about this one. This is the weird face Barney. I mean, look at him. You might think this Barney uses G-Man's or Slick's face texture, but that's not the case. This was a different face altogether, and I'm kinda glad they changed it. It looks weird. While the rest of his body looks like the final version, there were still minor differences in the textures of the body and the geometry. And now we reached the end. The security guard that we see in the retail game. He's much more confident, he's much more courageous, and quite possibly, he's also Gordon Freeman's secret lover. He's one of the most well-known companions in gaming history. What a great guy. And while you're playing multiplayer, the security guard has a different model with a red shirt that kinda looks cool. Again, this model might look similar to the single-player one, but it had some reminiscing features of the Ted Barney model in it, like in the vest and the legs. And before I end the video, just as a bonus, here's pre-release Otis. He used to have a much more rounder head and he used to wear a helmet, something that he doesn't do in the retail game. And here's the Chad in the retail game. And that's pretty much it for this video. Thanks so much for watching, and a big thanks to these benefactors for supporting the channel: Ryan W, Unusual, Taylor, NoClick, Geode, Fisher Grice, TTG, Lambdry, Hawk Assault, Mr. Spawn, Alien Grunt, Mark Jellin, A Normal Street Lamp, T-Boy301, TRR Droid, and Bipolit. Thanks again, and see you in the next one.